Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. What is up, everybody? What is up? Let me make sure I do a quick audio check to make sure I and my cohorts can be heard.
What is what is going on? We
You're
live, we here.
All right, y'all are heard. Let me get this music going.
Oh no.
Okay, music is hey, we good. We good, baby.
Can you hear we live?
We live, baby.
We live.
friend.
Man.
We got three hymns talking about the movie Him.
Type shit. Oh man. Let me get that right to a good level. Okay, cool. All right, everybody. Welcome. Make sure I get this thing shared out to where it's supposed to be shared out to. Not bad. And then we'll get going there.
I just saw Miss Angela go crazy. Yeah, let the chat know that random or a button mash going a little too crazy is because I'm fighting for my life.
A button mash a day keeps the doctor away type shit.
Facts.
Hey man, when Angela's on you, bro, I'm just trying to get out the way. What's that meme? It's like, hey man, I'm just trying to stay out the.
I just work here, man.
Okay. Now that we're here, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Captain's Lounge. This is episode 25 in the installment of the series. For anybody that is new to the Captain's Lounge, this is essentially where I and some colleagues of mine, or whoever I bring on, just chop it up about dope stuff. Usually comes in the form of reviews for music, reviews on movies, film, whatever it may be. We just have genuine dope conversation. And today, I have with me two colleagues who are, funny enough, not content creators as of now. At least as far as I know. I don't think they've really consistently put out any content, but hopefully, maybe in the future they decide to go with it. But everybody, welcome to the stream, to the channel. Jordan and Chris, gotta say hello.
Hello. What's going on, man? And I will say, technically, I'm a content creator, but not for personal life.
Yeah, you do it for the man type shit.
I mean, yeah, I guess when you phrase it like that, sigh.
You're not wrong.
Jesus. But yeah,
Paid.
everybody here, we are going to have a bigger discussion and bigger breakdown on the film and the movie Him. I put out my video not too long ago, like I think literally yesterday, as I'm talking like it wasn't like literally yesterday, in which I sat down and kind of gave my initial thoughts after leaving the movie. And funny enough, I left the movie with these guys. I watched the film with these guys, so we all have genuine reactions for when everything happened. Which is the main reason why I wanted to have the conversation with these guys, just because they were there for a lot of that stuff. But before I get into the nitty gritty and details, y'all give me like your initial first thoughts on the movie and like what you guys thought about the film, just like watching it inherently.
You can go ahead.
You can go.
All right, now go. All right. I think the movie was shot well. I think the shots and the way that the movie was filmed, the way that it looked, was really well. I think as far as everything that was promised inside the film, I don't know if they delivered to the best that they could have. It's unfortunate, I think, because even though it wasn't directed by Jordan Peele, it has his name all over it, which is unfortunate in this sense that he's an up and coming director, right? So he can't really afford having bad films, which in his case now he's done really well with Get Out, Nope, and whatever his other one. But he's done really well, but to have a miss like this, and whether or not he directed it, it still has his name on it. So his next project is going to have to be a hit. And I'm pretty sure there was it a Nope 2? I'm pretty sure there was a sequel to one of the films that he was supposed to that just got shut down or just pushed back because he couldn't. I guess really couldn't think about exactly what he wanted to do for it, which is good, which is fine because we want him to put out a product that's going to be up to standards with those Get Out and everything. So we'll see. But either way, it was a good film. I don't know if it delivered exactly what it wanted. As a football person myself, I enjoyed watching it, but as a regular person, I don't think an average person will really be as enticed by the film.
Interesting. Jordan?
Man, that was trash, bro. It was all, I'm kidding. That's what a lot of people are saying, and we can kind of get into that. But I think disclaimer, I think is important to know for reference. I love football, kind of like how Chris said. So I was just excited for it from a football standpoint, and some of the storylines, I guess, like symbolism in the trailers.
Mhm.
But I'm also not a horror person, so like I wasn't, I was a little scared to kind of go into, to be honest with you, because I just don't like films. But I just really wanted to watch this because I just think the things they presented was really fascinating, and I kind of out of it not expecting the most perfect in the world, and it wasn't. We can talk about the Act 3, but I thought I got everything of it. Conversations, sports, and how we put these certain people that's feeling willing to sacrifice everything to be this chosen one or somebody to sport, and how that kind of impacts someone's psychological thinking. So if we're doing a scale from 1 to 10, like me personally, I give it like a 7 or 8. Like it was a good time, but as Chris kind of alluded to, if you don't care about football and you were expecting spectacle or this grand thing because it's supposed to be like a Jordan Peele produced film, then you're going to be disappointed. And I can see people who maybe was a little too hyped for, walk out of it and say, "Oh, it's," I've heard a lot of people say that, which I wouldn't find as boring. But again, this is about my opinion. But I thought it was, I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So let's start here. I feel like at least with my video, I gave enough of the pros for it and what I enjoyed about it, and we can get into some as we deep dive scene for scene, at least to the best of my knowledge. Let's kind of I want to tackle some of the critiques you guys have for him, and I want to start with Chris because I feel like you have the most unique perspective, probably just because you're I feel like the more hardcore football fan out of the three of us, and you gave your sentiments in regards. You feel like you didn't maybe deliver the message in the best way that it was trying to deliver. What makes you say that, or was I accurate in that, or did I just butcher what you said?
Well, I think it's a good story as far as they talked about race, what football players go through to some extent, what they have to sacrifice and things, which is good, that's great and all. It's just I don't know. I feel like as far as it was put off to, you were told you're showed you're gonna get a horror movie, and as far as horror goes, I don't really feel like I got that. I feel like I got more of a psychological thriller. And even in that sense, it wasn't as, you know, psychologically pressing as bigger films that have done it. It's the way that it was filmed. Like you can feel it feels like Jordan Peele, directed it. It feels that way, but it also at the end of the day when I left the theater, it didn't really feel like I got everything that I thought the movie was going to give to me, I guess.
Okay. See, that's interesting. I feel like there is always this weird dichotomy and then perspective when it comes to horror films. And I talked about this a couple different times where I feel like people have horror put in this box of what it should be. Not saying you do, but I think this is a conversation I have with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because this has been a thing that I've heard a lot of critiques on over the last 5 or so years when it comes to horror films. Because we are, for the most part, I feel like in the age of the psychological horror movie, where even films that aren't necessarily categorized as horror tend to have some aspect of psychological horror within them. How I think even certain superhero movies that I've seen, like MCU stuff, has had them in there to an extent. So because they don't have that stereotypical look of what a horror film is, I think people kind of write a lot of this stuff off as horror. They don't really see it as horror. But if you're watching something like A Ready or Not or or a Shaun of the Dead or a Zombieland. These are comedic horror films. They're like, I think horror, just like any other genre of movie, can have subgenres within that genre to make it stand out some. Now I guess we go into the conversation of like genre bending films and do movies even need a classification, but for the most part I do feel like a movie like him or a movie like the ones I stated earlier can still and should be considered horror films. They just don't have the stereotypical like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street like slasher motifs that you would usually associate with horror. And I think it just comes from people not seeing horror as much. I think horror is a genre that hardcore fans like myself go to see it, and then people that pop out every once in a while see a movie that maybe they found interesting, whether it be a new movie from a franchise they've seen a million times, like Halloween, or it's something like a Weapons, where it was just seen as being like the scariest thing in the year due to the marketing. So you take that chance out and you go see that thing on like date night or whatever it may be. Now, outside of that, I will say with this film in particular, I still consider it a horror film, but I think to your point, for a lot of people, the casual fan goer, if you go into this movie expecting it to be a traditional horror movie where, oh, we'll get haunted by this thing, or there's a demon in this thing that's like killing people or hunting people down, you're probably going to be disappointed, like to your point. And I think that's also something that comes with a lot of Jordan Peele movies. I think most of his movies he makes don't have that type of makeup. And it's really interesting because Jordan, you said something today when we were kind of chopping it up about it, where in your perspective, the worst thing Jordan Peele could have done was have Get Out happen first for him. Like that'd be his first movie to come out.
Yep.
And to your point, I understand what you meant, at least from my perspective. I think that because what is deemed as your magnum opus comes out first, everyone wants to like have everything else you put out be measured up to what that is. And I think even in that, in doing so, sometimes that can be very disingenuous in regards to how you evaluated that thing to start with. In me saying that, I think some people hype up Get Out more than I think it should be. I think when you go back and watch it, you remember where you were when it came out, and it was like a big cultural event, it felt like. But quality wise, I wouldn't put that up as his best film that he's put out. But the better films he's put out are somewhat similar to Get Out in regards to how he films them and how he writes the scripts. But there's been this thing recently with Jordan Peele where I feel like people are looking at him as this overrated director / writer of films, because it seems like he's always trying to be very surreal in a lot of his movies. And he uses a lot of symbolism in a lot of his films, as well as his films they don't fit the traditional horror mode in a lot of different manners. Like usually the true like villain or demon of a movie isn't like very clear cut. And I think that can just, I think that just really messes with the perspective of how people see the movies. Now, Jory, what I'll ask you before we get into like the nitty gritty for scene here, is there any other like sentiments that you feel like people kind of maybe misconstrue, or any thought process on Jordan Peele himself as a director, kind of what you maybe feel like he does great, or vice versa?
I mean, like you said earlier, or I guess when we chopped it up earlier, I really do think Get Out was the best and worst thing to happen to him. I mean, it was just so, regardless of film, regardless of how you feel, it was so successful and so loved at a granular scale that it's almost like he's always have to play catch up or play in the shadow of that movie. Like if he tries something different, people are gonna be like, well, and it doesn't go particularly well with the audience, they're gonna be like, well, we want to like a Get Out. But then if he, does try something different, like it puts him in a box almost essentially. And I'm not saying he's doing that. He's making like all his movies very different in my head. But I think I'll be lying if I didn't think he thought about it a little. It's just like, man, like, I don't regret putting out Get Out, but it's just like I feel like now people only expect Get Outs. So like he's almost feeling like, well, I gotta try different. Maybe that's like Chris said earlier, is picking and choosing when he's going to like do his next like actual directed and written film, because he's trying to find something, I guess, to find that balance between giving people what they want, because at the end of the day, like it is his writing, it is his movie, so like he should feel emboldened to do what he wants to do. But at the same time, tickets got to sell, and it's hard for him to have the credibility to continue to make movies if people aren't going to watch them? Because that's how they're going to look at it from a standpoint. So it's a weird dichotomy there. But I mean, I guess my last thing with just him, if we're just going back to him itself, I just really think the third act was rushed. Like I did not expect. Like I saw Jordan Peele, and yes, Chris is right. Like it doesn't matter if he writes it. Like people are going to think it's a Peele film, and like I knew going in, I was like, this ain't going to be your typical. And I still find it terrifying at some points because the true horror was the football, which I thought we can get into later. But it's just like that to me, like the injuries and all that stuff. I was, man, like, okay, like this is I noticed being a football fan, but it just really hit different. But I think the third act felt like it needed like another 15 or 20 minutes. That was my take. Like the more I think about it, because it felt rushed because it went from, and we can talk about scene for scene, but like it just kind of went from one scene to another relatively quickly, and then the ending happened, and then him like just kind of popped up on the screen. And it almost felt like it missed a scene or two, like it just kind of skipped. It felt like that. I'm not saying that wasn't the intention, and probably was the intention to even just feel that jarring, but like it almost felt like when I walked out, like this was really good, but I feel like there's a director's cut that's probably really makes this movie good. That make it one of those where I'll watch all the time. So that's just how I feel about it. There's other stuff like you can critique it, like some of the stuff that Chris said. I can see that 100%. Especially if you're looking for. I mean, because Sinners had the same thing where people, well, it's not really scary, and like the vampire thing is kind of weak. Like I get it, but also at the same time, like for me, like it just kind of hit home stuff.
Yeah,
it's we can critique it all we want. We can go scene by scene and really break it down. But it was really the third act for me that kind of made it fall a little short for me.
All right. And real quick, shout out to CyberDat in the building, and to the other congruent 4 people we have here. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for coming in and being a part of this, and with us in this conversation, or again being a part of it. If you just want to comment in the comment section, I'm here to have the interaction and that dialogue. But to a lot of y'all points to kind of reiterate a little bit. I need everybody to watch this to understand. Jordan Peele did not write this. He did not direct this in any form or fashion. He was one of 6 producers on this film. So if you've seen a lot, and that's something I mentioned in my initial review for it yesterday, was that it felt like a Jordan Peele movie, even though it wasn't him. It felt like Justin Tipping, the guy that directed this film and partially wrote part of this film. It felt like he really took a lot of inspiration from Jordan Peele stuff, because a lot of the scenes and a lot of the layouts felt very Jordan Peele in my personal perspective, personal opinion. In a lot of ways, I saw this stuff. So to get into, I guess, some of the cons for myself, I think I agree with a lot of what my friends here are saying. I think, to your point, the third act could have been a little bit more prolonged. I feel like this movie only being an hour and 36 minutes was kind of an interesting decision. I feel like this could have easily been like an hour 50 to 2 hour movie, especially with
hated that.
With the premise being what it is and being so deep and so layered. I'm like, you could have afforded to make this a little bit longer. Especially when I watch something like a Demon Slayer, I just watched that movie yesterday, and I'm like, okay, this is 2.5 hours. What was stopping you from making this a little bit longer? Which probably me saying that's probably the budget more than likely, but I do feel like, to your point, I think there is some stuff on the cutting room floor for the editors that were probably left out that could have been in here, that could have enhanced a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though?
What's up?
And we can talk about it. Do you think they cut some of that off because it was too controversial to do?
Now that is interesting. That's a good question there, because I do feel like they were already pushing the line a little bit with certain characters being like representative of real life people. Like I think we talked about it. And then again, if everybody watching this, no, this is a spoiler discussion, spoiler reaction. We're going to be discussing spoilers in this. So if you haven't watched the film yet, please go watch the film and then come back to this stream later on. But we're talking about spoilers here. But like in the end, where the owner is wearing a literal cowboy hat, and he's the owner of a football team, and he's kind of making them sign the soul over saying "boy." Like it's obvious we're talking about Jerry Jones here. I think they're legit like actual people, and then even Tariq Withers, I feel like is like an allegory for like the light skinned athlete. I think more than likely it's more so a look at like an allusion to Patrick Mahomes. But if you wanted to throw other light skinned athletes in there, like a Steph Curry, whatever it may be, like he still fits that mold of that kind of athlete, visually and like from a narrative wise, being somebody who is very talented and being worshipped as the next person. But it is interesting. I do feel like maybe there were more people that they were kind of depicting in a way that I wouldn't be surprised if they, like, again, if we ever get a director's cut of this or an extended version, I would not be surprised if there were more people that were kind of like pointed at. Now, I want to start going through this scene for scene, or at least for the most part, like I guess part by part, because I don't have the movie up, so I'm not gonna remember every scene. But the movie, for the most part, starts out very interestingly in this living room where you're having this family sit down and watching the Super Bowl, or at least their equivalent to the Super Bowl in this world here. And the favorite team, the Saviors, is playing. And they're discussing this star quarterback who's brand new, who has, you know, been amazing and worked really hard to get this team to where they've gotten thus far. And you essentially see him well, you don't see him do it, but you hear him throw a game-winning touchdown pass. And we're told that he got injured in the pursuit of doing this. And I think this is where the first kind of allusion to what we're talking about here kind of takes place, where the injury we see is legit like a super compound fracture where like Buddy's leg is like hanging halfway off. And obviously the audience, as well as the little boy Tariq Withers, or in this film his name is Cameron Cade, he's really like taken aback by it because it's pretty shocking to see a fucking leg like snapped in half like that. And he looks away, as you know most people would do. His father then grabs his face and makes him look at the injury, and then states that, "Look at this. This is what a real man. This is what a real man looks like. This is what a real sacrifice looks like." And I think this is where I want to stop and kind of have the first bit of discussion here in regards to your guys' reaction to this scene and like what this scene kind of stood out to you meaning.
Well, I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Chris, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're good.
I just you spoke first, so I didn't want you to feel like you had to do that every single time. Now that we've watched the whole film, hearing and thinking about that scene is haunting to me because it's implied and basically told that like his dad made that deal with the owner to like become the next GOAT. So like you can look at it in the beginning without that framework being like, oh, dad that just loves his savior so much and like wants his son to really well and hey, I think you can do this too, son. And you see that before, like you see it with which FYI I'm going to use a lot of analogies here. Like you see it with Tiger Woods. I read his upcoming and how his dad, from the moment he was like, you know, drinking milk, he like put like, you know, like golf clubs, like miniature golf clubs, hands, like he was like, hey man, like you're gonna like golf and you're gonna be one of the best golf golf players ever. So I kind of saw that initially when that first scene was like, and him like showing him the injury. It's just kind of like another one of those, hey, if you want to play the game, this is what you got to do. But now that we know how it ends, it's basically like, hey, nigga, you have to, because we made this deal. So I don't give a fuck how much you don't like this. You know, you're just going to have to enjoy this because, like, in his head, it's like, wow, I just thought about this now. Because if he quits at any point with this deal, his dad probably died for that. When he told his, remember, like, Cameron was like, oh, I didn't want to play football. He probably, his dad's probably like, oh, if you can't make your son play and he's a kid, like, let alone an adult, I kill you. So it's just like now it just makes that scene haunting. Like, not only are you a horrible dad, in my opinion, because you're sacrificing your son just so you get the chance, right? The chance to play football. Mm-hmm. You didn't even get to see it because, rightfully so, as a kid, you're like, hey man, you died for it, and it's just like now he only plays with guilt. So like seeing that scene now, that scene isn't like this uplifting thing that I thought about son bonding with father balling with his son. It's just like it's grooming from the jump.
Yeah, I think that's something about a lot of Jordan Peele film that's always amazing to me is that seeing a scene for the second time or thinking about a scene for a second time from before watching the film and then after watching the entirety of the film, scenes always hit different, which isn't just not a hit thing, but I think most great directors do that as well.
For sure.
For this movie in particular, that was something that I found really interesting, and especially when you go back and look at like certain dialogue choices that he gave throughout the movie. Again, that makes that hit even harder and kind of alludes to the overall narrative a little bit more. Chris, your thoughts?
Well, first, I meant to say this earlier. I forgot. So I do actually want to give a shout out to Marlon Wayans for picking up another dramatic role. Because obviously, if you know anything about the Wayans, they do a lot of comedic, ridiculous roles, scary movie, et cetera, stuff like that. I know he had like Requiem of a Dream or something like that, and he had a basketball movie in 2023 or something. But it's nice to see him do that, and I just think that's cool, and he needs to take a note of that. But as far as that. Like the first, I guess, act of this, then I think Jordan pretty much hit on pretty much anything that I had on. It's kind of.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Like that's kind of mostly how it really went, I guess. Like I don't really have anything to add outside of that.
Yeah. So
Plot armor magic. Sorry.
Plot armor magic is crazy. Moving into the next little bit here, we kind of transition from that initial introduction into Isaiah White, Marlon Wayans' character, as well as Tariq Withers' character, Cameron Cade, and we then move into the a time jump, which is 14 years, I think, in the future from that moment, where we're seeing that, hey, Isaiah White has had this long, illustrious career with the Saviors. He's a 8-time champion. He's heralded as like the greatest of all time, the best to ever do it. Which obviously we talked about like characters representing other real life people, and this is an allegory for Tom Brady here. I think Tom Brady's like what, a 10-time champ, right?
No, he's
is it 10?
7.
Is it 7? 7? Okay,
Yeah.
hell, that's even closer to what he was. So it's pretty spot on
Yeah, he
there.
was 8, huh? Yeah.
Right. So like him just being one more over. But we see that his career is starting to come to an end now because as most athletes do, he's aging. And he's getting old, and he's starting to look to retire at the end of this season that they have going on. But before the season starts, we have to go through the draft process. And in this draft process, the next GOAT that is next up in the process being Mr. Tariq Withers, Cameron Cade himself. He is heralded as the future GOAT, as the quarterback who is next up and the next person to do it all and do it big. And the league already is forming this like narrative of dethroning Isaiah White and bringing in Cameron Cade to be the next guy, since he's in the end of the year going to retire, and then this guy is coming into the league. So we're getting ready to go through the draft combine and the whole draft process. Now, really quickly, I do want to speak on the whole idea of who I think this person is, and also like the idea of having this amount of pressure on a person and what this can do. And I think the movie speaks to that in different moments of the film as well. This, at least for me, and again, I said this in my video as well, this was a really big allusion or like a hand wave to Mr. LeBron Ramon James. Because I can't think of any other athlete. Maybe there's a sport that I'm not as familiar or tapped in with where the GOAT in this league is on the way out, being Jordan at this point in time. Jordan was like I think he had retired in 03, or he was like on the way out in 03. He may have been on the Wizards already at that point. And LeBron is coming in, and at 16, 17, 18, they're legit talking about him as the chosen one, putting on ad promotions for Sports Illustrated in his Nike commercials. He even, to a certain extent, started to believe the hype, and he had the chosen one tattooed on his fucking back, on the shoulder blades. So this is something that's really interesting in regards to the amount of pressure you're putting on somebody, to where you are not just having to be living up to the reputation or the expectation of being a good player, but you have to be the best player. And when you're looking at who the best player is considered to be at that moment in time and how flawless his record is, and in real life it was Jordan, and in this movie it's Isaiah White, it's so crazy to me that kind of pressure is put on a young person, and still a kid. And again, it makes me look back and kind of imagine a little bit what LeBron was kind of going through at that point in time, but also it makes me look at Cameron Cade and seeing what his pressures are looking like. And for the most part, early in the film, it didn't seem like pressure was getting to him too much, up until we get to a point to where he is at a practice field. Because again, before we get to that point, I want to go through the quick thing of like, we see him sit down for an interview, and the way they characterize him and introduce him, he seems to be very much so a humble, kind person, who's not letting all the fame and the expectation get to his head. Like he has the obvious idea of wanting to be the GOAT, but he's not feel like he's not arrogant about that. He's not the typical athlete that a lot of people love to see, the guy with the arrogance and the supreme confidence. He seems very much so humble and down to earth. And we transition into him going to a practice field, and he's out there, you know, getting some midnight practicing in and getting a sweat and kind of maybe like calming his mind while he's also, you know, sharpening up for this whole draft process. And while he's there, there's this whole sequence into which we end with seeing him get smacked in the back of the or in the side of his head with a hammer or a mallet of some sort, and it leaves a literal fracture on his head. It feels like, to the point to where he has this brain damage of his brain swelling up and things of that nature. And he is told by his doctor that professionally, they don't recommend him going through this draft combine process because it could aggravate the injury, and he should probably get some form of rest and let the swelling come down, because he just got smacked in the side of the head with a mallet, which also in that smack, this person is wearing a mascot costume. And I feel like there is this speculation on whether this thing that hit him was a literal fan that was around, because we've seen fans later on in the film around the area that Isaiah White is, they just kind of like dress up in their team's memorabilia and do weird shit. And then we also have this like weird spectral ghost looking mascot that was around a couple different times in the film. So I feel like there's not any clarification. I think I assumed it was a crazy fan, but there wasn't any kind of clarification on who that was per se, or if that was a supernatural thing, or if that was more so of a real life thing. But c'est la vie. Right. He gets smacked in the side of the head. He gets the news from the doctor, but then the doctor in this moment gives another damning piece of dialogue, or at least a sentence, where Cameron she gives her advice as a professional, and then Cameron asks, "What is your advice as a fan?" And then we immediately jump to the next scene where he's going to this combine. And again, I think this is a start, and I know we keep stopping really early on in the film, but a lot of this is laying the groundwork for concepts we see later on. And in this film in particular, the big thing that I'm noticing is this whole thing of sacrificing your health for the sport itself. Dude literally has brain trauma and is swelling in his brain and is willing to risk greater injury to go through this combine process. Which, again, part of it I understand. You know, his family's not in the best economic situation. So it's like, hey, bro, get my family out the hood type of situation. Now, another interesting thing about this is that when you're looking at the stitching on his head, the stitching, or at least the staples on his head, very much so resemble the patterns of a football itself, which maybe it could just be a cheeky thing that you kind of see there, or it could be a bigger metaphorical meaning and symbolic meaning, which, again, it's a movie associated with Jordan Peele, so the symbolism is probably going to be all throughout it. That doesn't surprise me at all. But the whole fact that he himself has become a football, which is a tool within a game, is very interesting and really telling with how he's perceived in not just the movie from a writer's perspective, but in the movie from like the owners that are looking at him, or the other people in this world looking at him. He is a tool in a game. Now, the next part I want to jump to is, I'm going to get you guys' thoughts on this as we kind of go through this really quickly, is we go through this whole process where he's beginning to get ready to start the combine. And he's backstage getting a haircut or a quick little lineup to make sure he's fresh for the cameras and all that good stuff. And now we're starting to see things start to get to him and bother him, because we're seeing his family kind of act a fool and cut up, you know, being who they are. And the sound design here is really neat, because we're starting to see a sound design in which all the chatter in the room is starting to deafen, and he's starting to kind of like glaze over with his eyes, and he's kind of blocking a lot of stuff out. And again, this is really good movie making in general, with the sound engineer in regards to letting this be another bit of storytelling and kind of showcasing the perspective of this person without him having to say what's going on. There's a lot of showing and not telling in this part of the film.
Yeah.
But we then have him kind of like explode, because they're kind of having this like chatter around, you know, hey, are you ready for this? You sure you're ready? The doctor said you probably weren't in the best of health to do this, blah, 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 blah. And then he's just like, I can do this. I've been preparing for this my whole life. I have to do this. I believe is a dialogue that he gave there.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I'll pause and kind of leave it to the peanut gallery to give their kind of thoughts on this up and the stuff up until this point. Where are you guys at this point in the movie?
You got it. Go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, me? I mean, at
Yeah.
this point, are you asking for my thoughts as I was watching it, or my thoughts after reflecting?
As you're watching, well, either or. I mean, you can give the initial thoughts and then you can kind of go through how the scene maybe changed after you thought about it some.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when I first saw this shit, I thought the nigga was just tripping. Like, I was just like, hey man, like, hey, I know you know those cartoons back in the day, those '60s cartoon when you hit your head, they start scared floating around them. Like, I thought it was just having that just sort of manifest in a sure way, especially since like the thing that traumatized you. You know, with this thing about trauma, how like stuff in unusual ways. But, like, it's fitting that the thing that hit you, even though based off the fact that it was hitting behind him, that he probably didn't get to really get a good look at him. You still have those images in your mind. So I thought it was just like a little bit of a trauma thing. At the fact that, you know, concussions can do that sort of thing to you. I just kind of figured it was just one of those. But now watching the film, it's one of those where it could be two things. It could be, you know, the grooming thing. Like, since this has always been grooming, I wonder, like, has he seen that sort of imagery before? Like, your brain, what's the saying? The brain is like, it only spots stuff in your dreams and stuff, the stuff you've seen. So it makes me wonder if this has been since day one, have he in passing seen this thing before? Because Isaiah's been around for a while. He was playing when the nigga was a kid. So it makes me wonder, just like, is that something that was
18
floating around his
seasons.
head to be like, oh, like, I want to be the GOAT, and the pressure is mounting on him. So, like, he's seeing his fans through that trauma. He's like, oh, okay, these fans are going to probably, because these fans like greatness, they're probably going to, I'm going to hear it. So, like, it kind of goes into the additional things that he starts seeing more. Because he knows, like, hey, like, I'm going to incorporate this. Am I even ready for this? I just got this brain. Like probably so much is kind of going through his mind. And, you know, I don't even think it's like Isaiah's doing in that sense, the grooming aspect. I think it's just like him. Can I actually do this? And that's why he freaks out. He's at the haircut. He's like, oh man, I'm fine. Because he's not telling that to them. He's telling that to himself.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting.
But yeah, no, I definitely agree with like all of that there for sure. And that is what you said before, the beginning of the film where I don't know, the mascot hits him in the head. I'm not completely positive what the point of that is, you know, because it's obvious that everything that he has became in his life to that point was a plan to get him to become the next like GOAT. You know what I mean? That's obvious, but what I don't understand is why they had to give him such an injury to get him there. Like if that's what they're saying, like that was a part of their plan to get him to be with Isaiah, it doesn't make sense as to why, because they could have it was obvious since his birth that he wanted to play for the Savior. So at any point they could have just brought him there if that's what he wanted, you know. That would have been an easy thing to be like, hey, you want to play for the Saviors? Come train with Isaiah for 2 weeks. We'll do that. That's fine. Because they don't even, you know, double back on really talking about it outside of the point of saying that everything that the only reason you're here is because we groomed you your whole life. So that's the only idea that you can really come through is like that whole injury was because they wanted you to have the injury, which kind of brings you back to the beginning of the film of like Isaiah getting injured and like being able to come back, and it's like, was that like Isaiah's turning point? Was that when he became like the GOAT? Because he was good at that point, but it didn't really make a point of him being the GOAT until after that. I don't know if it had anything to do with it or not, but it was just like a weird thing that I feel like wasn't exactly explained in the best way that I think the film could have done it.
Right.
Following that, I mean, it was just
go
like,
ahead.
I mean, following that, the rest of it there is, you know, him going and doing his you know, gauntlet and whatnot, the takes there. I think it was all done as well as it could be. I just feel like there was just kind of holes as to why it was necessary.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
I just want to. It's okay, Charlie. I want to like.
No, go ahead.
So I'm with Chris on like I for the longest time didn't understand the whole point of like he loved Isaiah like White anyway. You didn't have to bang his head to make him go. But this kind of goes back to the ending of the movie. He didn't really need them.
Yeah.
Like so like let me elaborate on this a little bit. So like yeah, they groomed him. But up to that point, without the goat blood or anything like that, he was already considered the greatest prospect ever. So why does he need to go to Isaiah White's combine or complat, like whatever, if he's already that good? And I think they didn't expect that nigga to be that good. Like they grew like you people get groomed all the sport playing at like one. So it doesn't mean you're gonna be
Right.
like, you know, physically capable. But he did all that. And that's why towards the end it really hit when he's like, nah. Anyway. Like, yeah, y'all put me in the best positions to be successful, but I still had to go do it. So, and that's what makes that Nepo baby thing comment later on interesting too. But that's for later. So, like, I think for them, the more I think about it, I think they feel like they had to do it because it's just like, well, what other reason would he come? Like, yeah, he'd probably come just because like he's a fan, but he doesn't need to come because they framed it as like you gotta come to get yourself back to where. Like they kept on framing around, you gotta get your swagger back, and it makes me realize like he already had, like he didn't, and he realized that at the end too. I didn't, nice, I don't need this. So I think they realized that they're just like, okay, we gotta bang this head or to actually.
See, funny enough, I didn't initially take that as the team having anything to do with it, just for the factor that we saw later on in the film, Craze fans willing to kill him so that he doesn't take the shine away from Isaiah White.
Yeah.
And obviously those fans acted on their own accord because it wouldn't make any sense for them to want to kill the star person they're trying to sign. So I don't know. It could be either or. And I kind of took.
I feel like it could be interpreted a lot of ways. I feel like there's no right way for that.
Right. And I took the situation very similar to like how the stuff at Bronny James happened this past season, where he was a prospect that was already going to more than likely get drafted in the like earlier by another team, but because he fell undrafted because of a injury or illness that he suffered beforehand, he was able to get to the team that wanted him in that moment in time. So I don't know if they mentioned like what draft pick the Saviors had or whatever it may be. I doubt they were able to get him for the factor of they just won a ring the year before, so I doubt they have like a top draft pick. Granted, I don't know how that works with the NFL, but I know with the NBA, usually the best teams never have like the top picks unless they've traded for that pick through a prior decision in the past or whatever it may be. You never gifted the first number one pick unless you're fucking Cleveland, I guess. Oh no, because Cleveland wasn't even a winning team at that point. So yeah. But moving forward into the film a little bit more, we go through this whole combine process. Well, we don't go through the process. We get to the point of where it's going to happen, and we eventually see either, I can't remember if he tapped out or if his agent made him tap out. Something happened in a sort to where he decided to not go through and perform the combine because of his injury. And they ended up pretty much just, saying that, hey, he's not working out and doing his combine. There's no need for him to do it because he's already shown how good he is. You guys seen him. You guys know who he is, et cetera, et cetera. So they're just going to enter the draft and see what happens at that point in time. We then fast forward to, I think there's nothing super memorable about the party thing, but we go through this whole thing and he's at this party and he gets a phone call from his agent, and his agent is letting him know like, hey, the Saviors are really interested in giving you a contract and bringing you on as a player, but they want to, test you out and make sure you're not damaged goods and see if you still have your mojo for the most part. In order to do that, you're going to go to this secluded ass compound in the middle of nowhere, bumfuck Texas, and train with the star GOAT quarterback, Mr. Isaiah White himself, for 7 days. And at the end of the 7 days, they'll evaluate like how good you are and if you're worthy enough to be drafted by this team to give it a contract. So obviously, Cameron's excited for it. His family's excited for it. Everyone's excited for him. He then packs all his bags and he heads to the bumfuck nowhere, Texas. And he gets to this compound. And this is the first part of the film in which I think we're starting to get into the parallel messages that the film gets off. Because obviously the whole aspect of like the star athlete and the retired athlete is like a big thing, but crazed fans and unhealthy fan culture is also another thing that we have here in regards to, you know, quote unquote stan culture. If you guys know the whole story with Eminem, you know where that comes from. But
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
we have like a group of fans that are outside this compound dressed up in like devil horned costumes. They're dressed in the same colors or even in a mascot uniform of the saviors. And we have one woman who, what was her name? Mildred? It was something like some old ass white woman name with the M.
Yeah.
And she was this crazed fan who jumped on the window and spit on the window and like screamed in his face, letting him know that we don't need you here. We don't want you here. Kind of showcasing that the fans have this unrelenting, undying love to this athlete, being Isaiah White, to the factor where they don't want any other star coming there because this star is going to diminish the light that Isaiah has. And again, this is one of those situations where it seemed crazy in the moment, but then I thought back to it. I always think back to basketball just because I'm the basketball historian. I felt like, well, I like to consider myself a basketball historian. I love basketball and I follow a lot of the stuff in history for it. Or around it. And that just really reminds me about when LeBron in 2019 came to LA. Like this was Kobe had retired at that point, but this was a Kobe town. And for a long time, Kobe was the opposing force to, or LeBron was the opposing force to Kobe. And when he got here, you had people deflowering or defaming any murals that were put up around LeBron in LA. People talking shit about him, like fans of the team, like just not wanting this person who was making their star players seem less than in the city whatsoever to play. Like, you're not Kobe, we don't want you here, blah, 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 blah. And hell, to the point, I can't remember if the N-word being painted on his gates of his home was, I think that was after the fact with something else. But again, LeBron never got a lot of love because of that type of like energy that was put around LA up until he got that ring for the most part. How even until now, I think a lot of people still kind of feel that way about him in regards to him diminishing or dimming Kobe's light a little bit. But that, again, it's something that happens. It's something that I very much so see and have seen in sports beforehand. But getting into this, we get into the compound and we are meeting Isaiah White. And this is a scene that I was really, really locked in on because the introduction of a main character in any form of writing, any form of storytelling medium is always very, very important if this character is going to be somebody who's going to be integral to the plot down the line. And the way we're introduced to this character is him doing some form of like taxidermy, I guess, where he was like kind of decorating these skulls and these heads or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And he stops Cameron and gives him this soliloquy here. And this is, again, something that is very much so like a telling trait of a Jordan Peele movie, which again makes me feel like this is a Jordan Peele movie damn near, because this is something that I've seen very much so be a thing that he does a lot in regards to, you get this soliloquy in this monologue that is seemingly about something not related to what's going on or tangentially related to what's going on. And then as the story is unfolding, you get to the main thing and the main point of the story, which again is something that I just love seeing the story. Like, I aspire to do stuff like this when I'm writing stories for comics or whatever it may be, because I think these kind of monologues are so interesting because you learn a lot about the character, a lot about the world, and a lot about what the story at hand is going to be about. And in the story, we get a history breakdown of a Native American tribe who invented the position of the quarterback and essentially like the whole idea of throwing a pass. I don't know how accurate this is. I haven't done any research to see. I would love to see if it is accurate or not. But for the most part, the story goes along the lines of this tribe of Native American boys during the time period of America where Native Americans were kind of forced to be in these like pseudo internment camps, damn near, where children were kind of taken away from their families and forced to go to these schools where they were forced to not worship their own religion, forced to cut their hair, forced to pretty much assimilate with white culture and whiteness and be educated essentially. And during this moment in time, they were playing football, but the white boys that were playing football at this point in time played a very aggressive, brutal form of it where they just wanted to hit you and take you out. But these Native American boys that were here were very much so not measuring up in stature. They weren't massive boys. So in order to negate the physical advantage that the white boys had over them, they would run a lot of trick plays and throw passes and things of that nature to get a win. And after a while, for whatever reason, the white boys got annoyed with that, and they like banned those rules and started playing this brutal form of football that was hurting people for the most part. And it got so bad to the point to where I believe he mentioned that like the president at that time then made the position or the play that the boys were using legal to the game itself, and that's how football was born. And I guess the central overall theme of that was kind of well. I'll ask you guys, what do you guys think like the central theme and message of them telling that story was?
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like it played a lot to the just general insanity that was Isaiah White, and like in the same place to kind of validate his own point, where it's like, you know, it's football over like everything is like like the roots of this sport came from somewhere that, and because that's all. I don't know if I'm mistaken, but at that same point, he was like being a black quarterback. At that point, he was like, it's to be good, I got to be great, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
just that whole idea for the way of being a quarterback in his mind, I feel like it was a little bit different. So I think just all of that played into just his whole weird Isaiah psyche and what he imagined football was and what it should be, where it was just like above everything else in life. You know, I just think it was more of a specific to Isaiah than it was anything else, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially Jordan.
Uh, yeah, I'm chewing on what Chris said. I definitely think there's a sort of an Isaiah sort of framework he has to have when it comes to the position he's in. He makes it quite apparent later on that he loves this than anything, but he also feels like he's gotta love it because there's no other choice he has. So you gotta remember, towards the end, he makes it known like, hey, I got the blood from my mentor, and the mentor before him is passed down, being the GOAT from generation to generation. So that means he was a Cade at one point, going to
Yeah.
the facility, seeing his mentor, and probably wide eyed and excited. And I don't know how cynical he compared to how Cade is in the movie, but I would assume he's not the same nigga he was then versus now. So he probably, with the understanding of, oh, he signed the contract because he wouldn't be in that situation. He wasn't. Um, so for him, he probably has to find any sort of mechanism to kind of like double down on why he does and did what he's done. Because again, we've seen snippets towards the end of his career. We can't imagine day to day he's killed so many people. And I think the analogy of him like killing when Kate was like, "Hey, these things you're making, did you kill these animals?" And he doesn't answer the question.
Right.
And like it kind of proves the point. It's just like this nigga's been killing.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't phase him. Like he's been doing this for what 20 years, so like animals and fans are probably the same boat for him. So, but he probably wasn't like that at one point, right? So he had to kind of find the. I think that Native American story is probably one of those ways to help him. But I think on the
Yeah.
flip side is also him trying to throughout the whole film be like, hey, be better than me. Because did you notice how that point of the story,
Yeah.
um, people of color, whether that's black or Native Americans, they had to reinvent the wheel just to win. But instead of just accepting the new white people would just always find a way to either back out or change it, or always at the end of the day still on top. They
Mm.
rather like cancel the game than actually just admit that they like are doing something better. So that kind of gives you the like sneak peek towards the end of the story where he's like, "Hey man, like we're fighting, we're in this prison. You got to get what you need to survive, but this ain't about me. There's bigger forces at play. It doesn't matter how good or much blood we have, how good we. There's always niggas that are going to change the rules or just stop the game entirely. You don't fit the bill." So I think it was like a double entendre, honestly, of being like, "Hey, helps me. This helps me cope, but also like I'm letting you know, like, hey, are you going to be a mascot or are you going to be
Yeah.
something more than that?" Because I think the reason why he's so crazy is because he knows at the end of the day, he's just a mascot.
Yeah.
He's just a mascot, and that's why Cade told him that, like, you're a mascot, because it's true. Like he's the
Yeah.
goat and has everything, but he is just a character for those owners to live through. So it's just like they're not taking the blood. They easily could have took the blood, right?
Yeah.
In this sense, like they didn't. Why? Because they don't want to fuck up bodies. They want the entertainment. And I think it wasn't towards the end because like when you're young, you're just trying to he's young and personable probably at the point. He's probably like, yeah, man, whatever it takes. I'll sign the paper, sure, bro, whatever. Like, I'm just trying to be the GOAT. And then like towards the end of his career, he's like, oh shit, man. Yeah, I've done some nasty stuff, bro. Like, don't be like me. 'Cause I'm starting to realize that what's this all really. And he says, yeah, but I think the obsession is him like coping with the fact that like he can't change those decisions now. So it's like, yeah, it's one of those where. So it's just like, I think it's really interesting. I think they did a good job really introducing him and his framework in like the first 5 minutes on screen.
Yeah, valid.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I think sort of same vein. I think the story is supposed to represent a lot of the idea of Black, brown people having to, like to your point, reinvent the wheel to be successful, and that never being enough in a moment.
Just to be on the field, just to be playing. That's the crazy thing. Like, you got to be great to be good, like you said.
Yeah.
Now, moving forward, we start this whole journey. So, for anybody that's curious, this film essentially is like taking place over the course of 7 days, in which there are themes to each day that we're going through. It's like the first day was having fun, the second day was like resilience, then it was leadership, and I'm forgetting the name of all the days. I have to go back and watch the movie again. I didn't take my notes like I normally do because I wanted to kind of just enjoy the film, but we're going over the course of 7 days, and each day, as you would expect, we're slowly seeing like the descent of Cade into madness. Very much so, something like a Dante's Inferno. If you guys have either read the poem or seen the movie or the game, whatever it may be, it's a very similar fashion where he's kind of going deeper and deeper into the pits of hell, proverbially. But there is a moment where I really wanted to speak on in regards to it being kind of a how do I put this? A heart to heart, I guess the best way to put it. Because we're gonna jump ahead here because I think going through every day like is kind of it's kind of doing the most here. But I want to jump to the highlights of each day, or even to a day that felt really important. But before we get into the training days itself, there's a little plot point that we have to touch on, being the whole idea that after their first little training session they are kind of getting treatment. Cade's getting an ice bath, and Isaiah is doing this weird process that I've seen and heard of athletes doing before, where he's essentially taking his own blood out and storing it so that he can give himself a IV drip later on and give himself an infusion of his own fresh, good blood, which is supposed to have something to do with like him oxidizing his blood while like his blood is still high in oxygen. Which I think that's usually like what the treatment is in real life. Because I've heard of basketball players doing. I think it's something that Kobe did back in the day, where he would go to Germany to get his like his knees and stuff looked at. They were like this like infused a lot of his good blood into certain parts of his body to get the recovery process going. But in this moment, it serves as a central plot point because he offered some of his blood to Cameron, and at a certain point, it goes from offering to the trainer just going ahead and shooting him up with blood and using it almost like a Toradol shot for the most part. Like it was used as this like super steroid to make him recover and build a better, stronger body for the most part. So for people watching, keep that in mind. It's very, very interesting because initially I was like, all right, I see where this is going. He's either going to transform into some kind of monster and it's going to be a body horror thing, or like maybe he'll get possessed. Maybe he'll have his like uses like zapped from him by Isaiah. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can look at this, maybe potentially going early on in the film. But from this moment on, after we got the whole idea of the blood, through each training day, as his body is wearing down in regards to the training that he has to go through and seeing how much of an extra tier he has to go to catch up with an Isaiah, he's taking these shots to kind of help him recover. So he's getting more and more of Isaiah's blood as time goes on, and he's getting stronger and stronger, and he's going through these training sessions with a little bit more ease each day goes on. Now, the first day I want to stop at and really take a look at was, I think, the leadership day. And this is something that's very important here. And this is just the big spectacle moment that we see from the trailer for the most part, where they're going through this drill. I don't know the name of this drill. Didn't play football, and didn't play quarterback first and foremost. So I don't really know what the name of this drill is. I understand the premise of it, to where he is like standing in the direction of Isaiah while Isaiah sitting down in a chair with his eyes closed, and he's supposed to simulate snapping the ball. And as he snaps the ball, not Isaiah, but Cameron's supposed to open his eyes quickly, catch the ball when it's tossed to him from Isaiah, and then turn around very quickly and toss the ball to a particular receiver. And they're going to make it difficult for him to complete that pass, which obviously he's supposed to, play around with the idea of like his reflexes and quick decision making, all that good stuff. But in this moment, the game goes from a simple game where he's kind of thriving and it kind of evolves into this dangerous thing to where free agents that are that are just around are coming and have come to this facility in the past to get a form of a training in, because these are free agents who literally, through Isaiah's words, are guys with nothing to lose. So they're coming there to just train and maybe trying to hope to get themselves within the league and things like that. We have one guy being picked out to be essentially a sacrifice in this drill, to kind of incentivize Cameron's character to do the drill better and more efficiently. And as he's throwing these footballs, we're seeing this guy legit eating a football to the face at up to 70 miles an hour. They turn that shit up to like 70 miles an hour. So a ball moving that quickly, smashing you in the face multiple times, because again, the smashing of his face doesn't stop until the drill is completed to completion. Pause.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Behave.
Oh, man. And it's very interesting because it puts a lot of pressure and a lot of onus onto Cameron to make the right pass and make it efficiently. And as he's going through the drill, we start to see him kind of getting worn down to where he's starting to emote a little bit of disdain and displeasure for the other receivers, saying like, "Hey, give me somebody who can catch. Why we got these guys out here? They can't even catch or play ball, blah, 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 blah." And we take a slight pause, and Isaiah's character is coming up to him and like let him know that, hey, this is on you. Them not catching the ball, them not doing this out of the third does not matter, because at the end of the day, you have the pressure on your shoulders and you have to perform. And so I think that's when the quote of like, you as a black quarterback, you have to be great to be good situation came about. He's kind of just beating that into his skull, and as he's doing that, he kind of locks back in and he finishes the drill. And in finishing the drill, obviously, Buddy's not okay. His face has been like half caved in by footballs at this point. And as he lay on the ground, damn near passed out, we see Cameron go speak to him, ask him if he's okay, and he hops up and acts like nothing happened. Like he's just like okay with sacrificing his body for the sake of the game. Now, this is another moment where I kind of want to release it to you guys in regards to your thoughts on it, because this scene for me felt very, very important. And not just the storytelling aspect, but a lot of the ways that we show Isaiah being characterized and broken down to the fans, and like what people should think of him.
Yeah, I think for this particular scene, what's really cool about this one is it made a really big note on like emphasis on what quarterbacks go through in general. Because at that point he's like, we have Cade yelling at his teams like, come on, catch the ball, like, you know what I mean? He's dying out here, yada yada yada. Can I get some extra receivers? And then you have Isaiah where it's like, it doesn't. Why are you blaming them? It's like everything falls onto you. You know what I mean? Whether you win the game, whether you lose the game, like all the pressure, all the glory, like everything is on you. You're the quarterback, and I think it was really good to think about in the sense of like, I mean, if you watch football at all, you watch a Super Bowl, you know what I mean? Like the MVP typically is a quarterback. You're basing just games off of every Sunday, any given Sunday, it's just based off how the quarterback performs. You're not really saying so much that the Eagles perform well. You hear like Jalen Hurts did well today. Patrick Mahomes did well today. They won the game. Patrick did this, that, and the third, right? So it's like, I think it was a really strong emphasis on like what quarterbacks have to carry on their shoulders, just in like a regular day. Sure, they don't probably, I'm sure Patrick's not working at the facility over in Kansas City with a little football machine shooting his receivers in the face at 100 miles an hour, but it's it's just the pressure that it comes off, especially like take last season, he's got a third Super Bowl he could have had in a row, and it's like that falls on you. It's like, yeah, your team wins or loses, and everybody has to carry their weight. But when they say Kansas City loses, they say Patrick Mahomes did this, that, and the third. They don't talk about the center. They don't talk about the receivers. Like maybe a drop pass here or there, but your name is at the forefront. So I think it was just really cool that they made the emphasis on like, hey, you're a quarterback, man. This is all on you. Get it together. And then like Cade, he like you said, he turned around. He's like, all right, let me lock in. Like you're right. This is on me. Let me get it together.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Chris kind of hit it. I have no notes on that. I think it was just a cool moment to kind of not well. Nobody likes seeing their face get punched, and that's not it. But like seeing this these two black people playing a position that we historically weren't allowed to play. To be like, hey, this will fall on you, win or lose, always. Get your shit together because that's just the name of quarterback, let alone being a black quarterback. They're gonna find any reason under the sun to not give you your credit anyway. See what Lamar Jackson. People still like, oh, Lamar's good, but blank, but blank. Like that's why I need him. I need him to win the Super Bowl. That's neither here or there. But like, um, I think it was just a good moment like that Chris just mentioned. And I saw somebody say this on TikTok. I don't know if it's true, but somebody argued that him doing that drill for it because it helped him use his reflexes in the final scene when he needed to he closed his eyes, kind of like a Spider-Man moment of senses, because the blood was all in his eyes, or whatever the case may be, to kind of help figure out who he needs to swing on. So somebody argued that kind of training him to be ready for the case. I think it's stretch. So far stretched, at least to me. But I
I can see
heard
it.
that and I was like, I think it'll be I think I just wanted to highlight it because I'm just like, I don't know how much he makes it quite clear that he doesn't want Kate to be like him. So I wonder how much he really had all that in mind. So Kate's gonna be different, break the chain.
Yeah.
No pun intended. So it could be also that as well.
There was this whole
And it could be
idea
like
of like there is this whole weirdness of like him trying to want him to be better than him and like moments of weakness, but also still like fiending for that greatness that he had and not letting that go.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
to move forward in the movie now, we're jumping to a little bit further into training where we're now being introduced to Julia Fox's character. And I mean, let me see her names. I'm blanking on the character's name off the top of my head.
Yeah,
This
I
is
don't remember
why I
what it
have it
was.
pulled up. Her
the wife.
name is Elsie. Elsie White is her name.
Okay.
Elsie is a very interesting character. And I think early on, I, as well as my friends here, were kind of under the same thought process of like, she is the white trophy wife. Usually you have this whole idea that when athletes or black men get successful and get to the league or wherever it may be, they get a white woman, marry the white woman, have make kids, whatever it may be. So I thought she was like this trophy that was meant to be controlled and whatnot. And as Cameron was ascending and Isaiah was descending, she would like kind of choose and like choose up. And I thought that's kind of what the situation was going to be, where she was kind of like seducing him and being this sense of deterrence from where he's supposed to be, maybe, or leeching herself onto the next big thing. But she's very interesting because she ended up not being that. She still ended up being something that was kind of seducing him in a way, but not in a sexual manner, or at least not in most of the time it wasn't a sexual manner, but more seducing him into the whole idea of him being the next GOAT and getting him into that into the mindset of wanting to do so and what that will require from, I guess, a media trained side of things. And we're starting to see her kind of plant seeds. And it's very interesting because she is very overly sexualized in a lot of different ways, but I think that goes back to what our initial thought of what she was going to be, and I think that is maybe a bit of misdirection there on her part because she legit like at a certain part has a fucking crystal that's supposed to be like a coochie crystal that you like squeeze while it's inside of you to make your kegels or your wall stronger, and then she like gave Cameron like a male equivalent that's supposed to go in the rooter and the tutor to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is again funny, but again, I think it was meant to be a smokescreen in regards to like what her purpose was. Because later on in the film, we get to another moment with her where she is Well, no, we won't get to that point yet because I think there's a moment that I want to speak on right before we get to that because I know we're skipping some important parts here, but I'm struggling to remember every single scene in the particular order it happened because I watched this movie one time yesterday or 2 days ago now. But there's a scene in a sauna, and this is probably like one of the more bigger spectacle scenes here, where Cameron and Isaiah are doing recovery stuff, post workout, and they're in the sauna. And Isaiah asks Cameron this very interesting question and proposes this story. And this is coming off of the heels of them like kind of bonding and kind of having this like vulnerable moment of like wanting children and how Isaiah sees sees the fame that he has and how fans see him and the things he loves about the game and the difficulty he's going to have with letting the game go because this game is all he knows and all he is and all he has been. And he offers him this story, and it also serves as a question as well. If you are a starving prisoner within a prison and guards come to you with the option of food or freedom, which one would you choose? But also, do you have a choice in the matter? And this is something that I found very, very interesting because it kind of looked at the whole idea that you see with a lot of different athletes, especially ones that are in the not best of conditions, to where you're in a situation where your family is hungry, your family doesn't have opportunity, you're in the ghetto, blah, 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 and you're given a contract. And we see it a lot with musicians actually, where a label will come to them and say, hey, you have this hit song, we want to sign you so you can make more music for us. But that deal ends up being something that's significantly less in value than what their actual value is. But because they don't really have an option, they take this because it's a way out. And it ends up being a way to control and manipulate them later on because this was a 360 deal where now they're on the whole thing that that fucking what's old girl's name? I'm forgetting. I'm blanking on her name. She was signed to Diddy's label. Cassie. Or Cassie had like a 10 album deal. And then like the label still make it difficult for it. They put music out and shit like that. There's something of a similar ilk there where that's at least that's how I perceived it. Now, in this particular scene, before you move into the crazy shit that happened right after this, how did you guys perceive this moment of dialogue in this scene in particular?
Chris?
Oh, you got it. You go ahead.
Okay.
I was chewing something.
Nigga munching, ain't he?
I mean some popcorn too. Actually, the popcorn from the movie. Is that weird to say?
Oh, yeah, popcorn. Where? It's been like 2 days after the fact. What the hell? Dry ass popcorn.
You wrap it up in plastic, man. You wrap it up.
I still got mine.
See that ass? You're the weird one, buddy. You're weird. Anyways, so this was one of those quotes we were talking about in the beginning, right? That like really resonated. I think this can be applied to a hell of a lot of situations. I'm gonna give y'all an example. I'll put y'all on game. During COVID, right, when the stimulus checks happened,
right,
those checks for a lot of folks was really needed because they lost their job or whatever the case may be, right? I remember seeing a tweet that said, "Hey, man, I know with this stimulus check, you can put this much into Bitcoin, put this one in your ROA, put this in your retirement, and you can make it big." And then somebody commented and said, "Nigga, I'm just trying to eat them all." And that always sticks with me because like it goes back to this idea of like the prison. People always talk about freedom, but if you're hungry, like Isaiah said, and you need food, most people are going to choose what they need in the moment, even though technically long term the freedom's better. And you can apply that to any situation, but specifically with Black people, I think him saying that really hits home because there's so many layers with that. You can talk about systemic things that we go through. You can talk about the economic system and capitalism. You can talk about a lot of things here. And even in football, you can talk about a lot of things where it's just like it's easy for you to come to me and say, "Oh, you're in this prison. Here's the key. You need to get out of here." But if my basic needs aren't met, I'm not thinking of the big picture. I'm thinking of tomorrow. I'm just thinking about making it. So it's just like him saying that is really interesting because it's almost like to give him a reminder and a sort of reflection on him is like, hey, I didn't have a choice, or at least in his head, he didn't feel like he had a choice. He still signed that contract in his head. Maybe we saw Cade Cameron, we saw him, still have his mom, his brother for support, his girlfriend, a house. Like it wasn't that bad. We don't know what Isaiah's situation was. He could have been homeless for all we know. He could have been like in a way worse situation. And he felt like, man, I don't want to find this, but it's either this or it's either food or freedom. And he took the food. So I think he told that story ultimately to Cade to be like, hey man, do you really have a choice? But what's really interesting about you, Cameron, is like I think you have that choice. And I think Cameron ultimately make that choice again for freedom. So I think it's just another one of those snippets of like everybody kind of telling him, either him or like the doctor being like, hey bro, I did this. Don't be like me. Wink wink, because they're always listening and around basically. Just letting you know that you have a choice. Just letting you know. It's just like a huge like subtle thing just for Cameron to hopefully caught on. And I think at the end of the film when we saw his choice, something stayed in it for the most part.
Senor,
Yeah,
please.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I feel it's I like this part of the film, like in particular, because I think this is the part where you actually got to see Isaiah have a human moment. You know, it was like he almost broke down. He like when he was talking to Kate, he was like, he obviously gives him this quote, and you see him thinking. He's like, I want to leave you with this. I obviously can't tell you what I want to tell you, but do with this what you will, I guess. And it's like Isaiah clearly has that where I want to be here, I want to be the GOAT. Like where he's at in life, he just loves being the GOAT. He has an obsession with that. I don't know if it has anything to do with that beast, quote unquote, that we'll probably get to later with the blood and all that. I don't know if that has something to do with it, or maybe at this point where it's like he's kind of having like this human moment because like less of this blood is flowing through him or more of it's going to Cade. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's just like a nice little human moment that he has there that you can like see, and it's like the whole food freedom thing, and it's like he's breaking down because he's like like I didn't have this freedom, yada yada, it's that third, and it's like I want you to be better than me. I want you to be different. So you're gonna have to like I can't obviously tell you, but I need you to make a choice because it looks like Jordan said before. It's like you seem to have a different sort of head on your shoulders than I have. You seem to have better options and whatnot. So like, what are you gonna do with it? So I don't know. I like that scene because I think it was a lot more of kind of what you mentioned earlier, like how the film does a lot of showing than it does telling. Like it just showed a lot on for Isaiah, where it's like man, I don't love exactly where I'm at, like what I'm doing. Like I love where I'm at, but I don't love what I'm doing or how I'm doing it, kind of thing. And it was really cool to me.
Yeah, this part of the movie is these are the parts of the movie that really make me love the film. And why I gave it as high as a rating I did, because now I feel like, damn, I gave this movie too high of a rating, because even people that liked the movie gave this shit like an 8 or a 7. For me, I gave it a 9. I really enjoyed. I love these parts of film because one, it's incredibly difficult to do. Like me writing my comic I've been writing recently and putting it out, the thing that I struggle the most with and learning how to do is to write captivating dialogue. And the fact that you have scenes like this to where the dialogue is serving twofold, as to one, characterize Isaiah more, because as Isaiah is giving like his crazy critical like speeches and conversations that he's having in his moments up until this point, you're getting to learn a little bit about him and the way he sees the world. But this is one of the true moments where you got to see the true Isaiah White and like who he was before this deal and what he really wants and what he cares about and why he took this deal and how it's affected him. And it's also serving as a way, as we talked before, to kind of give a little foreshadowing and warn Cameron in the same manner to be better and things of that nature. By the end of this film, when we get to that ending, the ending definitely felt like something that he was groomed and built up to have and trained for by Isaiah. Like, I felt like the entire 7 days, he didn't train him to be the new star of the Saviors, but he was training him to break free from this cycle in a way. But at the same time, he's still looking to hold on to it himself because he's an addict at the end of the day. Like this God or devil given ability is something that he's addicted to, that he needs to thrive on. But at the same time, the hints of himself shows through all that bravado and all that craziness. So again, these are the higher points of the film in my personal opinion. Again, doesn't have the same flair and flashiness. Well, shit. Well, getting into like 5 minutes later into the next scene, it will. But these are the parts I love. Now, to get into the quick next thing that happens, obviously they have this whole exchange, and obviously Isaiah's being very cryptic about the whole exchange of information he gave him in the story and whatnot. And right after, we see Cameron then being left, as we normally see in the movie up to this point, to recover by himself in the sauna. And while he's laying down, kind of taking a nap in the sauna, we see Mildred pop her crazy head out again, and she like rolls from underneath the bleachers in the sauna and picks up one of the hot sauna rocks and proceeds to attempt to bash in his face, really kind of showing just to the extent these crazy fans will go. And as she's doing that, we're seeing her sons like outside of the sauna with football hats on and like whole body in paint as they're in their drawers and this weird imagery, and they're like cheering on this idea of killing this new star so that it can protect the legacy of the old star. And this is, to me, the way I perceived this was like a reference or a kind of a allegory to the way that sports fans, hell, even just fans in general, whatever it may be, always have to tear somebody else down instead of to big somebody else up. Like if, again, I go back to Jordan and LeBron in this just because I feel like a lot of the GOAT talk is around them too. If I were to tell you, hey, LeBron is great, and I think LeBron's the greatest of all time, and you think it's Jordan, right? What a lot of times what happens is instead of people just bigging up Jordan and saying what Jordan did positive, they then have to tear LeBron down to make him seem small in comparison to Jordan by going through what he didn't do, what he failed at, think it's X, Y, and Z in a comparison. And you can't ever just have a genuine dialogue and say, oh, I like this player did this and this and this good. That's it. I don't have to then tear down somebody else because they're threatening the legacy or the perceived legacy I have of this person. But that's very interesting in my opinion, how that works there. But she tries to kill him with the rock. He ends up getting the best of her, obviously, because he's fucking massive. He's like 6'5", 200 plus pounds, strong as shit, lean. Like this dude got into crazy shape for this movie. And it's like choking her the fuck out on the sauna bench. And he stops himself from killing her and is looking to come out of the sauna, but we see Isaiah standing there all of a sudden, and he like heaves this rock full force at her face and like smacks her dead in her face, and he kills her. And obviously, with their mother dying, the kids kind of like go to mourn her, like literally like damn like wild animals. It feels like, and how they're interacting with one another and the death of their mother. And we then see Isaiah act in a very interesting manner, and it's very crazy to see coming off of like how open he was a minute ago, but now we're seeing that crazy kind of lock back in and show itself again because he like enjoyed the idea of killing her and the physical action of killing her, and kind of seeing her as this like, I won't say piece of trash, but as this like non-purposeful thing. Like he like literally sees her like an animal, like this thing that can't control its emotions or its need to do things in a cardinal way, and puts her down like an animal for the most part, and literally says, oh, I got people that come take care of this, or like says, you know, it'll be taken care of. This isn't my first rodeo. Yep. In this moment, this is fucking insane. And I think this, you know, doubles down on the whole idea of the crazed fans and how fans interact with the athletes and whatnot. So from here, we then jump forward in time to where now Cameron is how do we say, seeing some culo. He has seen a lot of culo. Where Julia Fox's character is Elsie is coming to like make him feel better, I guess, or like really like playing on the vulnerability or the vulnerable moment he has in this moment. And not only is dressed very provocatively herself, but comes with a bunch of women friends who are dressed very interestingly as well, and are like almost luring him into this sense of, I guess, safeness in a sense, because he's like eyes glazed over and kind of just like letting his body do what his body does. I guess it almost looks like he's high or drunk. But as far as I saw, I didn't see him take any substance before his interaction, so it felt like almost very similar to like mermaids or sirens hypnotizing him for the most part and kind of drawing him in as he's getting twerked on and grabbed on and shit like that. And then we fast forward to the next morning, where Cameron wakes up with Isaiah at the foot of his bed, sitting in a chair with a gun. And the first thing he asks is, "Did you fuck her?" And
That's some freaky
obviously,
footballs.
like anybody that is of sound mind will react in a very similar fashion, where he's like, "Hey, bro, let's not point the gun at me. Let's not try to shoot my fucking face off." And we're seeing that Isaiah doesn't really have regard for his own life or others' lives at this moment in time. He's like putting the gun up close to his temple. Hell, he putting it in his mouth at times, waving this shit around, being very nonchalant with the gun, and making Cameron very uncomfortable in this moment in time. And it goes from his concern being that he slept with his wife to
Why didn't you sleep?
why didn't you sleep with my wife? Because he essentially talks about how Cameron still has this girl back home that is his girlfriend that he's been with since like high school, and he's like really loyal to her, blah 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 blah. And he gets more concerned in the idea of like, if you're not willing to hurt your little girlfriend's feelings, you don't have what it takes to be the GOAT. You have to hurt people's feelings. That's what we do as GOATs. We disregard people's feelings and their emotions, and we go about doing what's needed to be done to be the GOAT. And again, another bit of interestingness, and another reasoning why like I am really kind of irritated when people talk about with this particular film where they don't understand the message or they feel like the message is too complicated. Because this is another one of those moments where I'm like, bro, he was pretty blatant with the message that he was trying to convey in regards to this film. I don't understand how you're confused as to what they were trying to say in this movie. But again, say la vie. You guys, what are your thoughts of this particular moment? Like, what did this whole sequence mean for you?
I think Angela poked me in the back with a stick and killed me in half a second, so it makes me feel a particular way. But about the film, forgot what part we talking about right now.
This is the part where he wakes up with the gun in his face about him not smashing Zero.
Yeah. Again, I think it's just like it's hard because just Isaiah just has this really weird insanity about himself in football throughout the whole film, and it's just kind of like it's the level of insanity where it's like, if you're not what I am for football, then you don't want it. Like, you don't actually want it. Like, if you're not willing to sacrifice your love, your body, your mind, your soul for the sport, then you'll never be what I am. Which is like, I can understand to an extent, because obviously, sports players have to be able to do things to a higher level, than us regular folks can do, But in Isaiah's way, it's just more. It's dangerous and it's psychotic, It's more like it's like a sickness more than it is anything else. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's not bad, but it's fun to watch him go through these phases throughout the film, where it's like, you have his entire craziness, but then you have his little moments of clarity, his moment of I'm an actual person kind of thing. It's just another telling moment, I think, of where he's at and how. How he got there, kind of thing, I suppose.
Jordan, your thoughts?
What was the scene again? Sorry, I was healing.
Ah, niggas. Black people.
Black people.
This is the scene where he wakes up with the gun.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I was
Get it together, man.
I was also texting my mom, so like I was in a million places. Yeah, that scene is really funny to me, but underneath all that humor is him cracking. He calls doo-doo healers. I don't know. Anyway, I think there's some tragedy with that, because I think he understands if K really go, keep on calling him K. I'm calling him by his last name. He knows, like, he said it at the end when they fight. It's just like, oh, it's gonna have to be one of us. He knows if he's really that guy, that he's gonna have to kill him. So like, he's probably like trying to cope with the fact that I don't got that much time left on Earth. So like, he's like trying to, figure all this stuff out while simultaneously he also wants the cycle to be broken. So it's like this weird dichotomy where it's like, yeah, he probably did go from like, did you do it, to like, why didn't you? Because you're supposed to be the right. You're supposed to be able to put anything to the side. I mean, Chris was talking about it, but let's put it in perspective. Like, Tom Brady broke up his only marriage of like 20 years with his wife and kids just so he could play one more one, and they lost.
And they lost.
That man sacrificed his whole marriage because his wife was like, "Hey, can you just come? You already won 7 or 8 championships. Like, just come home. You've done everything you need to do." And he was like, "Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing." And like, he was willing to sacrifice it. I'm not gonna say that's psychotic, but that's the framework. Like, I mean, Michael Jordan has had multiple, like, marriages. Like, it's just like one of those where it feels like relationships are, LeBron's the exception. So it's just like, but for the most part, it seems
even
like
Skip Bayless was talking about that, where he was like very public about like telling people that like he had a conversation with his wife, letting her know that she will always come second to his career.
to his career. Yeah. So it's just like, if you expect in this game of capitalism, if you really want somebody to really make that money, be as successful as people dream to be, it does come with sacrifices, and that's one of them. So I think in his very twisted way, that's what he was trying to say. Now, he didn't have to do all the crazy stuff, the crazy shit he was doing, but like, the point, the message you make was genuine. Of like, hey, like, how much are you willing to really sacrifice? How many feelings that you're going to hurt? Because you're going to hurt those feelings. Maybe not necessarily, but black men don't cheat. We don't do that around here. But
Never that.
yeah, we don't do that around here. But like, but him having to probably have those uncomfortable conversation with his mom, his brother, his girlfriend. Like, hey, you're second. I mean, and I think that was one of those, like, Chris keeps on saying his phrase in love, like the show and don't tell. That show about how he to his family. He couldn't, Isaiah was like, no phone. Like, you can't talk to your folks because they're second. Football is first. Football is first for everything. At least for him, is everything. So he expects him, if you really want to follow him, you got to be everything. And being everything is about football. So it's just like, it all kind of plays in. So I just find it a really thing of him both showing his, like, damn, I'm going to die soon. But also like, hey, this is the mindset you're going to have. Like, or do you really want to? Because they asked him throughout the whole movie. Kim, what Julia Fox's character name? I forgot her name already. But like, Arrow's like, are you sure? Yeah, Elsie's like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And I think it's like I don't know. I ain't going to say Isaiah might be more sympathetic. I think Elsie doesn't care. But it's just one of those where it's just like, hey, are you willing to really put down everything that you're willing to do? Because they've seen Isaiah had probably the killing, the random stuff he had to do. It's just like, hey, are you willing to do this? And I just think it's another snippet of his humanity being, hey, like, this is what it is, bro. If you can't handle this shit, you can't do it. Because, nigga, I've killed people. Nigga, you can't handle cheating on your girlfriend? Nigga, I've slaughtered, nigga. You should go football. So it's just like, that's how I saw it. I was like, man, how he phrases is kind of crazy, but I get where he's coming from.
It's kind of crazy. I ain't gonna hold you.
I don't advocate anything that he was doing. Hell no. But like,
you don't?
No, what the world? This is on director Clark.
Oh man. But moving
for shit.
You're funny. Moving on past that, we're getting into start of the beginning of the end, I feel like. And there's some like quick moments I want to dive into before we get to the end of this whole thing, because I think it's been like an hour and 35.
This has been fun.
Getting into the whole conversation of a scene that I want to have where he is out and about, like kind of, I guess, exploring the facility a little bit more. And he flashes, there's a vision that flashes to him where he's like surrounded by paparazzi taking pictures of him, flashing him. And that same mascot that attacked him in the beginning of the movie is now suffocating him with a plastic bag. Obviously, is another heavy-handed moment of like explaining what's going on or what it's supposed to mean, and this whole idea of him being suffocated by the attention and all the pressures of being the next big thing, and it's something that he kind of just suffering with below the surface as he's going through this whole process and what it could be. It's again, we'll talk about it at the end of this, but another thing where I'm like, okay, if you didn't understand what was being said here, or the message was confusing to you, I don't know what to tell you, because the thing is, the Justin Tipping is being heavy-handed as fuck in what seems like this. But moving past that really quickly, because I think that's not even not to say what that is. More, it's pretty self-explanatory. Getting near the end here, we now are told by Elsie that there is a group of owners and people that want to meet Cameron about having a conversation around the deal of him being signed to the team and his importance to the franchise, and they kind of just want to get a feel for who he is as a person. And in this, we see we see Cameron go to this party, and this party is like in this one random building in the middle of nowhere that doesn't seem to have anyone around it. And Cameron makes a comment about it, like it's weird that these people with all this money would be here, but then she kind of goes to the whole thing that makes sense of people with this amount of profile and money don't want to be bothered, or they want to be out of the eyes of the public, so they go to this weird thing to put the party. And as he's there, he's approached by the trainer he's been getting shots from the entire movie. And throughout the movie, we've seen, and I meant to speak on this earlier, but I kind of just forgot to. We've seen this trainer slowly kind of break down and dissolve into this like mournful, regretful man who talks about how he signed his life over to this team and this job, and how initially he wanted to heal people. That's what his initial dream was. And when he signed onto this team, that dream slowly faded and kind of just like disappeared as he became someone who was just there to, I guess, put people back together in a non-ceremonious way for the most part. And we're seeing him like slowly giving hints to Cameron to run. Literally in this scene, he tells him verbatim to run in a quick interaction, and one that was caught by Elsie that Elsie noticed. And
what does that mean, bro? I don't understand what that means, man. I don't know why you're saying more. Like run backwards. Like, what do you mean by that?
Jesus Christ, bro. We then see him have this interaction with the owners, and the owners are kind of just like, I forgot what they asked him in particular, but essentially it's whatever they needed to ask him to get him to sign, and he decides to sign the contract, or he agrees verbally to sign the contract and be the next big quarterback for the team. And when that happens, he kind of goes through this like another like trance-like state where it seems like he's high or drunk, and he's partying and dancing or whatever it may be, and he passes out next to this shrine that has this like mask on it, and we get a reveal that this mask is covering the severed head of the trainer who was trying to warn him and get him out, and I guess he was silenced by Elsie. Elsie killed him, and we see like a bunch of blood now on Elsie's dress in the front of it in that whole situation. We then move forward into the film a little bit more, where Buddy is woken up, and he now wakes up in the training chamber that he's usually in on a table of ice, and now he's like in this almost paralyzed state, and he got a glass transfusion of blood that was taken from Isaiah, which maybe, I don't know if he got like a big transfusion up into this point like this, but he got this big bag of blood from Isaiah into his bloodstream now, and he's like immobile. And the only thing that he could think of to get him to where he can move again is the blood toradol shots he's been getting the whole movie, that he sees one left on the table across from where he is. So he falls out of the bed, crawls over to it, gets it, injects it in himself, and is able to get up and move and kind of like, get around and protect himself. From here, we see a big scene where he's encountering this room that he's been looking at the entire movie, where essentially it's supposed to be Isaiah's film room. Because the entire movie, whenever they would get done doing a training session, he would say, I'm going to watch film. I'm going to watch film. I'm going to watch film. And we see that this film room is like a room where he's sitting on the floor and looking up at the ceiling. And the ceiling is this weird TV or like screen showing fans screaming and chanting for Isaiah or whoever it is at this moment in time. I could just be like a generic chanting and celebrating. And he is kind of showcasing, like, again, his need and his love for the fans and their adulation and their love for him. And it's very, very, very interesting because of the fact where we've kind of spoken on how important that is to him, but seeing how mesmerized he is by this whole situation is very interesting to me. So this is what I want to sit down and ask you guys again. Where are you guys, or what are you guys taking from the scene, I guess, before we move into like the final? We're in the home stretch now of the film, and this is the big moment where we get the full reveal of like the plot synopsis, showing that over years time, generations time, the blood of him was transferred from one star athlete or one star prospect to the next, just like that's been going on in this film. And in order for the next person to go out and be him, he has to kill the one before. And obviously there's a lot of pretty open and honest dialogue in regards to how that happens, and there's a lot of reflection on the whole idea of Hollywood or any franchise or any significant piece of media entertainment where black people can be prevalent. The whole idea of like there can only be one black person at a time that can be in that light. And we see it a lot with Hollywood, where they're saying there's only one big black actor that can be pushed, one big comedian. It went from like Cat Williams to Kevin Hart to whoever it is now. From acting wise, it goes from like one black person like Will Smith to the next person, whatever it be, it was Michael B. Jordan, and at a certain moment in time, it was supposed to be Jonathan Majors. So it's always in Hollywood the feeling, especially in black culture, where we feel like there's only ever room for one black person. It's that whole crabs in the bucket mentality. But in this particular movie, that crab in the bucket mentality is like given physical form and actualized as an actual concept that can happen, that has to happen. So we're seeing these two enhanced human beings fight to the death within this film room, quote unquote. What are your thoughts on this scene, guys?
Chris, you want me to go first, or?
Yeah,
First of all, my question is: once we notice that his film is just him watching fans, was the whole entire time just him watching the crowd and the fans just to get that last feel before he dies? Like, because I assume, again, because it's a tradition for the mentor to give the powers to the mentee, that he knows that he's going to die. So every time he's like, I'm about to go see film, I think he was just replaying like those images in his mind. And that makes way more sense why Elsa, let it go, girl, be like, hey, he doesn't really want to hear, the R word, because like the retirement for him means death.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot, for him. Probably he's still, even though he has this beast in him or whatever, he's still a human. So it's just like, man, I'm gonna screaming. I mean, they kind of alluded to it when they were shooting. He was like, hey, like they were alluding to the fact that I thought it was gonna be some sort of brain transfer or something, kind of like how Get Out transfer your brain or something into like the black body. Like it was giving that kind of vibe. So I figured there was some sort of transfusion element involved with it. But I will say it is interesting. I found it interesting. His fans weren't on the goat stuff, but that becoming that goat thing that we use ever so common. We talked about this, Charlotte. How that became a demonic symbol in the movie. So it's just like, oh, it looks scary to us, but to them it's I'm just wearing what the goat we wear, bro. I'm trying to show my love for the goat. Like there's a more sinister thing obviously behind it, given that like there's this actual goat / beast in him that's giving him, such and such powers to be able to heal quickly or, play as long as he did. Which is another analogy for like Tom Brady, because no way they had to do anything to kind of get that power. So, when the reveal happened, I'm not shocked, glad he said it. Now the pass down thing was interesting because that makes me think like, is this like normal? Like, did he had to kill his mentor? Is this you just can't pass this shit off. He said only one of us can, one of us can have it. And like you mentioned, it's just like, is it like a metaphorical thing that only one person can have it, or legit like one person at a time can have this? So like it just, so it goes into like, damn, like, I mean, you knew this day was coming, and that makes more sense why you're upset about it. I don't know. This is where like the third act starts, and again, this is where like I would have a little more time, because again, you said this before we recorded. I don't have to know like the background of the first goat. Like there needs to be no prequel for the first goat and how he got the power. I don't need to necessarily know that, but I would have loved a little more fleshed out just to see for Isaiah's like, oh, like did he have to kill his mentor? Like none of that stuff was mentioned. It was implied. It's like I just love Isaiah White's character, so it's more me just being so, like him showing more of his humanity, being like, oh shit, like I'm at my end, like I'm not gonna let this go without fighting. But if you really are that guy, I'm supposed to die here because we're just cattle, animals to the real enemies, not him, but the owners. So it's just like we are still at the end of the day. Damn, I feel I'm losing my black heart. When two black slaves used to fight, what was that called?
Mandingo fighting.
Yeah, that's what that felt like. That's what that scene felt like to me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because they did it to please the owners that, again, they keep all the wealth, they keep all the knowledge and power and stuff without any of the fighting. So it was just one of those like, damn, bro, like, let's see niggas fight. I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't like the fight. I hated the fight personally. I just didn't like that they felt like they had to fight. And that's probably, what's funny? I would argue that the blood thing's probably a fucking myth. It's just like maybe I'm wrong. This is just me kind of theorizing. But like maybe there could be people, but they've been told that. So it's just like, well, I guess this is, bro. I have to kill you because I killed my mentor. So it's just like,
could be the case. Real quick, shout out to Strange ODT. Thank you for pulling up, my man. He says it didn't seem like Zay had any problem ending a life, so probably so. I don't know if he's in. I don't know if it's in relation to right now or previous part of the stream. But again, nevertheless, thank you for showing up, my man. Thank you for engaging. But to your point, yeah, I do think this. Usually, I'm not the biggest proponent of a flashback per se, especially after we just got done talking about that with Demon Slayer. Seeing a flashback at a pinnacle moment, it's kind of takes a lot of the wind out of the sails. I would have loved to have seen a moment in the past. But you know what? This would have been perfect. This would have been a perfect scene if we would have extended the scene in the song a little bit more. And as he's giving that conversation about the prison and the being a prisoner, if we could have got a flashback as he's narrating that of showing his process of taking that blood or killing his mentor. We didn't need to see any kind of a detailed explanation of what it was, but they could have showed that imagery and have him narrate that story in the same way. And that would have done a lot to really, I guess, give a little bit more contextual perspective to that scene and make that scene hit a little bit harder. And also, I think,
in a sense, like,
go ahead.
Yeah, like especially in the sense of like showing if Isaiah was similar to Cameron at that time, kind of like how they do those. It's not like a flashback, but it's kind of like how they Cameron's walking around that circle around Isaiah. It could have did similar to that, where it's like kind of like a fade and like there's a pillars, and as Cade walks past the pillar, it's kind of like a fade out to who Isaiah was at that time, having the same conversation with his mentor at that time, kind of to show that like when Isaiah had to make this same choice, like he was not that killer that he is now. He wasn't the person he was. He was just trying to get the food, He was just a prisoner trying to eat some food. That would have been kind of cool to do it in the sense of that, instead of just kind of having it at the point where Isaiah was just kind of insane the whole movie, and he had his brief moments. But I thought it would have been nice to kind of like had it at that point where it wasn't a full flashback, but just kind of like little imagery of past times of it being him, showing like he had struggles making the same decision that Cade had to.
Yeah, I think to your point, I don't know if you were saying this verbatim, but like that scene where instead of like having how we had it, having like I can see a shot to where they're circling and Cameron's head like covers the screen for a second and use that as a transition to have like a younger version of Isaiah there had like still getting the same lines and the same dialogue, but having it to where you're seeing a younger version of him in that moment in time, and then maybe pan back, transition back to him again with that same way, that same like wipe against the camera. But again, hindsight is always very valuable, I guess. But moving into the final part, and I think where people have a lot of issues with, and I think for the most part, all three of us kind of had a little bit of a gripe with, is this ending that showcases almost like ceremony, where you have planes flying overhead with like colored cloud or colored I can't remember what the name of the particular trail is that they use for that, where they're using it in like air shows and whatever to spell out words and stuff or patterns. But they have that going on. They have cheerleaders there, but funny enough, the cheerleaders have like these masks on or like these like stocking caps on their face, so you can't really see details in their face, which obviously, again, is very heavy-handed in the factor of like them not being treated as people or them not being like needed or warranted as anything less than a tool to cheer. In the same way, I guess the players are to a similar extent, but their face is the moneymaker. But he is walked out and is put before this council of owners of the team, and on top of that is also like his agent that he's had for a long time. That's also one of them, and they are letting him know like, hey, this is your final moment. You worked very hard to get here. Sign this contract, and you will be the new star of the team, and we can give you untold riches and untold joys and whatever it may be. And he hesitates, and as he's hesitating, they're getting more aggressive in trying to convince him to sign this contract, literally getting to a point to where they threaten to murder his entire family. And the Jerry Jones represented character calls him boy, which is where like I think all three of us, I was like, interesting, very interesting verbiage you used there. It was very funny to me. It was very interesting how that it was something subtle that everybody would get for the moment. This is again another heavy-handed moment of showcasing. Okay, this is based in like demonic ritual, but at the end of the day, it always goes back to like how rich white men also view black athletes, which is a slave for a certain, for lack of a better term, where they are there to provide them with assets and make them money and get out there and strut their stuff like a show horse. But instead of bending the knee and becoming the new quarterback of the Saviors, we see Cameron pull up Miles Morales and say, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. And he essentially picks up a hammer, and it seems like it's the same mallet or hammer that was used against him in the beginning of the film, and like dodges an attack from behind, which kind of goes back to what you mentioned before of this possibly being a way of him being trained by Isaiah to have this interaction. It could be. I think we would have more like action sequences. Well, maybe because there was this part where he like threw the hammer too, like it was a damn football, and pinned somebody or threw a knife. But he essentially uses this hammer now and is like slaughtering this entire staff. And then this is where I want to kind of speak on to a little funny part in regards to Elsie, where before the slaughter fest happens, she gets up and says, hey, I'll do this shit myself, in regards to them trying to just cull Cameron from the whole equation and just going to get a new star to fill in for that spot, or going back to Isaiah. And she literally trips and falls on her knife, and that kills her. Which, Jordan, you had a very interesting thought around this, and I want you to kind of regurgitate that to the people
man. Yeah, I want to phrase this correctly. So we talked about it earlier, how we thought Julia Fox's character, she was like maybe a potential sort of romantic partner for Cade once, especially after or Isaiah died. It kind of gives us feelings like, oh, okay, like she's gonna like save him or be with him or at least support him in the final act. Cause you see moments of sympathy. But when you see her out there on the field with the white owner at the place where the contract's being signed, highly encouraging it, damn near like, you better do this. It's this constant reminder when it comes to intersectionality about how, at the end of the day, when it's specifically on white women, what we find throughout history is they lean more into their whiteness than their womanhood. So despite like her probably understanding of his marginalization and the choices that he feel like he had to make to that point, she can completely get that as a woman. Like, and that's why I think for a lot of the movies she sympathized with him. So, are you sure you want? I think those moments were actually genuine. Like she looked very concerned. But when push comes to shove, the bait and switch, which is something that you unfortunately see a lot you see a lot of times in real life, is she's going to choose her whiteness over actually being with the marginalized. She's not only just with the white owner, she's encouraging it. She's saying, y'all ain't being manly enough. I'm gonna do this. Like she has fully drunken this sort of Kool-Aid of patriarchy and this idea of like the only way, and it's almost fitting because Isaiah said, "Are you rather choose food or freedom?" She's almost the flip side of the coin, where she also chose, in the sense of like, as a woman, I can imagine the spaces and stuff that she had to go through. She felt like an only way to make it, she has to take the food, which is cater to her whiteness as much as possible. Make sure the owners feel good, make sure they have everything they need. And that's why she was bold enough to be like, y'all niggas ain't doing shit. Let me kill him. Y'all ain't doing it. So I think it's fitting that she fell on her own knife and killed herself, because with that kind of just proves the point that regardless on how much you try to cater yourself to like patriarchy or white supremacy or whatever the case may be, if you're a marginalized person yourself, or a person of color, woman, whatever the case may be, most often than not, you're the one that still has to be bitten at the end of the day. She was the one that died first. I think that's very important to remember. Like during this slaughter, she's one of the first people to die. She wasn't like the Jerry Jones last people to die. Like I think it's quite fitting she was also one of the first to die, because it's just like you fell on the knife that you created to save yourself. So yeah. I just think like when she fell on it, I know that again, I don't want to, and you said this, Charlie, it probably wasn't satisfying for, but for me, I just saw, I was like, damn, there was no other way for her to go out but her stabbing herself. I think it was quite fitting for her character, and I think it actually made me really appreciate her character, at least what they were trying to do.
Yeah, so. It's yeah, I think that's all. Like I said, I talked about this with you the other night. We were leaving on the way home, and with horror, usually in a final act, whenever you have a character who is evil or an antagonist in any form or fashion, usually they get their comeuppance, and it's like this like earned moment that makes the audience feel good, i.e. The path of Joffrey Baratheon from Game of Thrones. Like when that little bastard died, everybody felt so good that he got his comeuppance after causing so much pain. Which is part of the reason why like niggas hated the ending, because Cersei didn't get that same like comeuppance at the end. She got an easy death and an easy way out and a happy death. Yeah. So with a character like this, her falling on her knife isn't the way you would expect. You probably prefer him to slaughter her like he did everyone else. But I think for what her character was and the role she played in all of this, it just felt kind of poetic for her to literally fall on her own knife at that moment in time, and let that be the way she died. It was goofy,
and it's almost
it could have been executed better, but I think it was needed there.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost kind of tragic, because when you saw it, you can see her grab her throat and realize, like, oh shit, despite all my work to make sure that this goes smooth, that I stay alive, that I make sure I lean into higher to make sure I'm okay, she still died at the end. You can kind of see her eyes, like, shit, that didn't matter. Like, I'm still one of these niggas that's going to get slaughtered. Like, that didn't protect you. And I just think it's kind of fitting for the story that the black man, the person of color, persevered and kind of pushed through and realized, like, no, I'm not going to subject to these systems just because good, and this is how it's happened before, with the best person getting the blood. Like, I'm not going to, this might be risky. He easily could have died from that. But he thought that was, it's almost like, this sounds kind of crazy, but it's almost like the slaves that were on the boats and they decided to jump off and be slaves. Like, I'd rather ending than subjugate myself to whatever this is. Like, I'm alive. I ain't free. Like, he chose the freedom, and like it worked for him, because it would be kind of sucky in this, kind of like Get Out at the end if he actually got arrested by the police. And that's why Jordan Peele changed that. He's like, well, niggas need to feel a little happy. So like, you know, it's good in the movie, but most often than not in real life, when we against those systems, they die. So I just think she's like a flip side of the coin of Cade as being a woman. So it's kind of tragic too. The more I think about it, I'm like, damn man, like that this could have been different for you two. You could have joined him in that rebellion, but you're either too scared or you were too comforted in like what you were receiving. I don't know, and she died on it as a result.
Right. So yeah, that for the most part is how the movie ends. Like you go through this whole slaughter fest, and then she dies in that way. And I think the only funny thing that kind of reminded me a lot of Ready or Not was the agent was, instead of being killed by Cameron, he was spared by Cameron, but the devil, I'm guessing, or whatever entity or hell lord it was that had this deal with them, pulled the agent onto this pentagram and like exploded him off camera, or it was on camera, but you couldn't really see the bitch. You saw the blood splatter, but nothing much more. And we see Cameron kind of like walk off with a smile on his face, knowing that he is now him. And I think this is where a lot of people had issue, and where I think one of our guys today was talking about it when we were playing 2K, where he wanted more of an understanding or explanation as to like, was he going to the league with that power now? What was he going to do? And you can make a lot of speculation in regards to what may happen of like, okay, is he going to go to the league and do this X, Y, and Z? But I feel like you don't need to necessarily have an ending here. And this is where I want to kind of get into the synopsis of the film being wrapped up, but also have the dialogue around the way people are taking in this film. Because I think this movie having such a low score on Rotten Tomatoes is kind of wild as fuck to me. I can see people that are maybe skeptical of Jordan Peele films maybe giving this like a 70%, a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, before it to be like in the 20s, where we see other movies. Like I'm gonna look this up while I'm sitting here while you guys go through your stuff. I want to look up like other movies that have the same Rotten Tomatoes score to see like what degree they're saying how bad this movie is, because it's kind of crazy to me. But I guess wrapping everything up. Wrapping everything up, Chris, what was your overall thoughts on like the third act now?
I mean, I don't think that it was bad, right? I think that it was a choice. I think that it was a choice that they made that they didn't have to, but they chose to, and it's okay. But it was, I don't know, lackluster. It's just everything happened, and then like he killed everybody. But it's like you said, like what does that mean for anything? Like what does that matter? What did you actually do? I mean, I guess you got to choose that you didn't want to be a slave to these guys, but like I don't know, you still just murdered all these people as far as anybody else is concerned. Like what does that mean after you leave? Like, do you go to the league? Do you not go to the league? And I know I was looking at like pictures, obviously, and whatnot for the thing, and there was like some scene that they had in like, I guess it was the initial trailer that wasn't even like in the end of the movie, and it was like, I don't know why you guys cut it. It was like him just like standing all bloodied up with his arms open and stuff. It was like, I don't know why that wasn't in there for, but wasn't bad. It was solid. It was just, I don't know. Like it was just, I just watched it and I was like, okay, like that was a movie I watched. He just killed everybody and he went somewhere. We don't even know where he went, because as far as I'm concerned, like he still has all those Isaiah supporters. It was outside of Mildred and the random kids that were with her. Like there was still a bunch of them out there. Like how did he get home? Like, yeah, I don't know. There was a lot that just wasn't explained at the end outside of this murder thing, and I feel like we needed some more. Like maybe just a cutscene at the end where it was like he was still playing in the league, and they like kind of talked about what happened over his 2 weeks there, and like how we got to this point, or like even if it was like a cover up where it was like where they kind of show that it's like the league knows what was happening there, and they're just covering it all up. Where it was like, oh, Cameron Cade went out with Isaiah to have these 2 weeks of practice. It's a shame for the travesty that happened when the supporters, the crazy people outside of his house came and murdered Isaiah and all the whoever people that were there on the signing of his contract day or something. And it's like, then you have Cameron out here playing ball. So it's like, it shows that he still has this beast inside of him kind of thing. The NFL, like the league, still knows that it's going on, and there's there's just like nothing you can do about it, because like at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. Like, yeah, he murdered all those people, but I'm sure they're not the only team that have this weird ritual. Like, yeah, maybe he broke the cycle there, but I'm sure it'll happen again. Like, it's kind of it's just kind of life, you know. It just kind of happens, and it's cool that he got out of it. But it's, I don't know. It just this could have been more. There should have been more in that to show what happens next, I think.
Right. Now, really quickly, this is just for a little fun thing here. I'm going to ring off of just a few movies to give you guys reaction on if they are as good or worse than this movie. Because these are, so the first couple are movies that have the exact same 28% score on Rotten Tomatoes as this movie.
All right.
One of which being Daddy Daycare from 2002.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
The Scooby-Doo movie, the James Gunn Scooby-Doo movie from 2002.
Are you talking about the first one? That shit's fire. Hold on now. We gonna disrespect that.
Anaconda, the funny enough, the Ice Cube Anaconda movie.
Hey,
Oh
that
my
shit was
God.
gas too, bro.
Eagle Eye with Shia LaBeouf, I'm pretty sure.
That
The
shit was gas, too.
first Fast and the Furious movie. And now we're getting into
The
movies that are
first?
just like, yeah, the first one.
A 28?
28%, yeah, it came out in 09.
Yeah.
So what I'm
Now
learning
we're-
is niggas don't know how to score. That's what I'm really gathering. Yes.
Now we're getting into movies that are just like 1.1% low. These are like 27% movies right here. The Green Lantern movie, the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay. That's disrespectful.
Twilight
That's
Saga, the Twilight Saga, the New Moon. So I think this is the last Twilight movie, maybe, or like the third
No,
one.
Breaking Dawn's in the last one.
The Game Plan, like the
Oh.
Dwayne Johnson, the Game
Oh
Plan.
my god. Now, okay, this is getting ridiculous.
This is getting ridiculous.
The movie isn't perfect, but oh my god, hey,
Blade
Jesus
Trinity.
Blade
Blade
Trinity,
Trinity is
what?
at 27%.
Oh, they bugging, man.
Punisher, the Warzone, the Punisher, like this is the second Punisher movie that came out in 08, is at 26%. So again, these are movies that are like within 2% score of this movie. So people believe this movie is this bad or at this tier of being bad.
now the Green
This is
Lantern
why
one
this-
is like that movie's actually bad.
This is
Like-
where I'm just like, okay, bro, I get it. Y'all don't like Jordan Peele. That's kind of where I am with it. I understand y'all don't like Jordan
Yeah.
Peele.
Because like
Because this movie,
I can
even
understand a 60 or a 70, but like nah.
28 is fucking insane.
Yeah.
And again, if
I
you're
didn't
people's
think it was
biggest
great, but
gripe,
damn.
if people's biggest gripes are the ending, I'm like, whatever in life do you ever experience something being 90 to 70% good? Like, let's say you're eating a 3-course meal, right? And the first 2 courses are amazing. Like your appetizer, your entree are fucking spectacular, or at bare minimum, they're good. You enjoyed yourself. And then the last meal is mediocre to bad. And you then dictate that entire experience as being terrible because one final part of this thing wasn't that good. Now, if you're saying this is like Game of Thrones season 8 levels of bad, as far as the ending goes, or like any M. Night Shyamalan movie bad, now I'm
Hey,
like,
it might
okay,
have some bangers.
he has a few solid movies. We made a video about this on the podcast within it now, which plug to that. If you guys are interested in seeing more of what I have to say and some more people that are dope in my opinion, go check out the Then and Now podcast, which is now back on YouTube. We've been dropping on there pretty consistently again. But that all being said, all that being said, this movie is not that bad. This movie is solid. I still think for me personally, it's a 9 because this movie and the material spoke to me a lot. Being a young black boy who was always relatively of athletic build and a bigger dude, I feel like I've suffered. I don't want to say I suffered. I saw a lot of this stuff and personally seen stories of people that have been through this stuff. And having a younger brother who's a football player, and I've seen him go through certain situations like this. It really resonated with me a lot more than anything else. Like literally, I told Jordan this, but like in high school, there's a guy that I went to school with who was star football player. Dude was cool, whatever. He's one of the cool kids. Everybody knew him. He had this really bad head injury on the football field and just like disappeared for a long time. Like nobody saw Buddy for a long ass time. Then I go to work at Bojangles, which is like my second job in high school. And I see him there working there. And Buddy had like gained a lot of weight and he just seemed like he was kind of out of it. And I asked him like, "Hey man, where have you been, bro? What's your story been? Whatever." He's like, "My life is like damn near ruined after that injury. Like I had to like learn how to walk again, how to talk again, and really go through stuff because the injury was like causing him to have seizures and shit now." And it's just so crazy to me that this kid who was 17 had this life altering thing happen playing this game, and the game just moved on without him. And this is how this shit goes, where people can give their all to the sport, and the sport won't think twice about moving on without you, and you're being a footnote in the history of it. Some people are blessed where they're able to be remembered and immortalized within the sport and be like the legends and goats, but very many people go through the whole story of that where they get forgotten.
Sorry.
But no, yeah, you're good. That's why the movie hit so hard for me. So again, I think I still would like to give it a 9. I think at bare minimum this probably drops to like maybe an 8.5 with me after like sitting on it for a couple of days and sitting down and having this very detailed dialogue on it. But yeah, man, this is how I felt about the movie. Everybody watching this, to the 2 people still in here watching currently, and to the other 19 that have been watching throughout this 2 hours, and for the people that watch this stream way after the fact, y'all let me know in the comment section below. Do you agree with me and my colleagues' thoughts and sentiments on it? What are your thoughts on the movie? How do you perceive this story and this message? Again, everybody, remember, please, this is not a Jordan Peele movie. This is a Jordan Peele produced film. This is a Monkey Paw produced film. Justin Tipping was the partial writer and the director of this film. And I don't think this was his debut. I think he's done other stuff before. But this is a dope film. This is a dope film for me, in my opinion. I really enjoyed the message and a lot of the presentation aspects. And from an acting standpoint, I think the actors did an amazing job. I think Tariq Withers did a great job, and God, Marlon Wayans turned out an amazing performance here. Like this was him as Isaiah White was really like fun. Like I really enjoyed this role, like in the same way I enjoyed Brad Pitt being what's Buddy's name from Fight Club? I'm blanking on his name in Fight Club. Brad Pitt in Fight Club. I can't remember his character like right now at the top of my head, but I kind of got that same vibe of like these crazy, deranged people who like try to drive the main character into mental duress for a good bit of it, and kind of training them to be better versions of themselves. But yeah, this is dope. For people watching as well, let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. And again, if you guys made it this far into the video, this means you guys liked the video to an extent. So please do me a favor and hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel to, get updated on when I drop more videos, or if you guys want to see more. The Captain's Lounge is where I'm discussing stuff like this. I reviewed whole musical albums on this channel in the Captain's Lounge. I've had conversations with different creators, or different people who are artists and different things of that nature, and content creators. So, there's a playlist of the Captain's Lounge videos you can go back and watch through again. And if you guys have also made it this far into the video, there is a new function that we have now on YouTube called hyping. It's like liking a video, but to the nth degree, where you give points to a video and it gets, a little bit of a boost of going through the algorithm and gets circulated around to people. It's supposed to be something that works to prop up smaller creators a little bit more on YouTube. So if you guys enjoyed this, I would really appreciate the hype points if you guys would mind giving those to me. But again, this has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo on the Captain's Lounge, episode 28, with my guys Jordan and Chris. Before we get out of here, you guys have any final thoughts for the audience, and anything you want to plug or any platforms you want to promote?
I'm good.
Yeah. I just, appreciate the time. Had a good conversation with y'all, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, man. Again, everybody watching, remember, forever and always,
you're now watching the Captain.
And I will see you guys next time. Peace.